he is the master at procrastination and kicking things into touch and Stalingrad strategies.
Former President Jacob Zuma has been granted medical parole. But is this legitimate, and are these reasons valid? Joining me to discuss is Sara Gon of the online newspaper, The Daily Friend. Sara, always good to have you with us. Could you tell us, first of all, what is the process by which medical parole is granted? What are the conditions?
It's a provision in the Criminal Procedure Act that allows an application to be made for parole, for medical parole. And an application can be made by a prisoner's doctor, or by the prisoner himself, or by someone acting on his behalf, presumably a lawyer. But it's not an and situation. Either one of those three people can apply. The minister then has to put together essentially a medical board to consider the application, to consider the documentation, and the medical board presumably makes a recommendation. And at the end of the day, three people can decide to issue medical parole, either the National Commissioner, the Minister, Ronald Lamola, or the parole board, the General Parole Board that oversees all paroles. Now, the interesting thing is that the ultimate approval for this parole was given by the National Commissioner, who is Arthur Fraser. Now, Arthur Fraser has played a very dark and dirty role in the process that led to, it basically shielded Jacob Zuma from having to appear in court over the arms deal charges. He was with the security agency at the time, and that issue has never fully been aired in, and it wasn't aired at Zondo, which was quite strange. But presumably, and we are presuming, we can't be sure, that essentially Arthur Fraser is paying back something that he owes to Jacob Zuma in granting this parole. And essentially what it means is that he leaves jail and he returns home or goes into a medical facility, depending on the issue. And the grounds that he is allowed to be paroled on is either that he's suffering from an incurable disease, or he is suffering from the inability physically or mentally to look after himself. So being the understandably suspicious opposition party that it is, the Democratic Alliance has now made an application for the documentation that provide the grounding for this granting of parole to see whether it is in fact legitimate or not. But at the moment it's opaque, we don't know. So those are the circumstances that Jacob Zuma has to be suffering from, either terminal illness or the inability to look after himself in order to be granted the parole.
Enjoying this analysis? Click here to sign up for our 30-day free trial for more content from the CIA.
Okay, so the question on everyone's lips is, what exactly is President Zuma's medical condition? What do we know about his health at the moment, Sara?
We don't know very much. I mean, the only thing I've seen about his health, because it's supposed to be private, is I came across a letter from the medical services section of the army, which is responsible for his medical care from the date of being president onwards, saying that he'd suffered from a traumatic injury last November 2020, and that he was admitted to hospital in August 2020 to undergo operations and to deal with the condition that he was suffering from. And it's quite difficult to tell whether they're talking about the injury or something else entirely. That's as much as we know. Certainly I haven't seen anything more, and that's presumably what the DA's, what we call PIA application is for, is to find out exactly what it is he's supposed to be paroled for. I mean, the interesting thing is that the provision provides that having your health improve and becoming better is not alone grounds for being reincarcerated. So, perhaps that's why Shabir Shaikh was never reincarcerated, because he got better, or certainly to the point where he didn't fit any of the three categories, although I think the law was different at the time. And other grounds didn't suggest that he should be put back into jail. So that's the typically Zuma-esque scenario we find ourselves in.
Okay, Sara, so what are the political ramifications of this? So ANC spokesperson Pule Mabe, he said that the ANC welcomes the decision to give former President Zuma the space to reunite with his family and to recover. But on the other side of the aisle, John Steenhuisen of the DA is saying that they want to submit a PIA application to understand the decision behind this, the decision-making process behind this, and wanting the minutes of those meetings of the parole board. What do you think will be the political consequences of this?
Well, I think, I mean, the ANC's cravenness, both Mabe and Ramaphosa, is not surprising, because I think that what they're trying to do is show that they love and adore Jacob, despite what he was supposedly his inspiration to the insurrection or the violence and destruction that occurred in July. I think they're sort of trying to make it up to him, even though, you know, there's no reason to make anything up to him if one is not in the ANC. So that's the one political consequence. I think his supporters will interpret it as some sort of exoneration, even though it's no exoneration whatsoever. It has nothing to do with his guilt or otherwise on his charge of contempt of court by the Constitutional Court, for which reason he is now in jail. Most importantly, I think it also has no bearing on his arms deal trial, which is starting on Thursday, which was delayed for the umpteenth time because his lawyers wanted to put in an application for postponement for ill health. So on Thursday, they are still going to have to put in an application for postponement, but that application has got to have medical affidavits attached, and the NPA was entitled to have their medical practitioner, their medical expert, examine him and produce a report. So let's put it this way: this is not in any way going to interfere with that exposure that is going to have to come out when it gets to the Pietermaritzburg High Court on Thursday. It is decided that is a completely separate issue. So the political benefits are somewhat spurious. They will be grabbed on, but they don't have any judicial benefits.
So Sara, before this interview, we were saying that Mr. Zuma hasn't actually spent a single night in jail, that essentially as soon as he was arrested, he was whisked off to hospital. What do you think are the chances of him recovering from this supposed illness? My understanding is that even if you are granted parole and then recover, that does not mean that parole is rescinded.
Yeah, it isn't. I mean, theoretically, it should be, because all the other conditions stay in place. But if you think that his incarceration is for 15 months, I mean, he is the master at procrastination and kicking things into touch and Stalingrad strategies. So I think somehow he'll never actually see the inside of a jail, not on this charge, on this conviction.
Sara Gon, thank you very much for joining us on the CRA channel. Let's hand over to you, our audience. Do you think that Mr. Zuma's parole has been granted legitimately? Please do leave your comments in the comments section below, and do give this video a like and subscribe to the channel as well. My name is David Ansara. This is the CRA. Until next time, take care.